Jesse's Journey to Justice. Chapter 1. Big Heart, Broken Home. Jesse was a 17-year-old boy with a big heart and a bright smile. He lived with his mom in a small apartment on Maple Street in the city. When Jesse was just 6 months old, his father had left and never came back. Growing up without a dad wasn't easy, but Jesse's mom always told him, "We can still be a family full of love." And Jesse believed her. Even though Jesse's home was broken in some ways, he decided he would help make other people's lives a little more whole. He helped his mom by doing chores without being asked. In the neighborhood, he carried grocery bags for Mrs. Wilson, the elderly lady next door. At school, he held the door open for teachers and helped classmates with their homework. Jesse always tried to be good, even when things in life were tough. Everyone in the community knew Jesse as a helpful, respectful kid. Sometimes other teenagers on the block teased him for being too good. They would say, "Yo, Jesse, why you always playing the hero?" Jesse would just shrug and smile. Deep down, he knew that doing the right thing made him feel proud and happy, and he hoped it would inspire others too. Chapter 2. Helping Others. Jesse's kindness was more than just a friendly smile. He took action to help people around him. One afternoon, he saw a younger boy named Marcus sitting alone on the school steps, looking upset. Marcus was 14 and having a hard time with math class. He was afraid of failing a big test. Jesse sat down beside him and said, "Hey, I used to struggle with math too. Want some help?" Together, they went over homework problems every day after school. Marcus started to understand the math better and even passed his test with a good grade. "Thanks, Jesse," Marcus said, grinning ear to ear. "I couldn't have done it without you." Jesse just patted Marcus on the back and replied, "You did the work, man. I just knew you could do it." In the same neighborhood lived a 15-year-old boy named Dante. Dante had a tough time controlling his temper and almost got into serious trouble once. He was hanging out with some older kids who dared him to spray graffiti on the side of a store. Just as Dante was about to do it, Jesse walked by and gently stepped in. "Dante, come on, you're better than this," Jesse told him calmly. He invited Dante to help paint a mural at the community center instead. Dante put down the spray can and decided to join Jesse. Painting the mural made Dante feel proud of himself. From that day on, Dante looked up to Jesse as a big brother figure who helped him stay on the right path. There were many kids like Marcus and Dante who Jesse had helped. He always tried to guide them toward good choices without judging or yelling. Because of Jesse, these boys were staying out of trouble and doing better in school. They respected Jesse and felt grateful to him. And even though Jesse never asked for anything in return, the boys he helped knew they would have his back if he ever needed them. Chapter 3. Wrongfully Accused. One evening, not long after Jesse's 17th birthday, he was driving home from the community center in his mom's old car. He had stayed late to help clean up after a charity event. The sun had set, and the streetlights were just flickering on as Jesse drove down Pine Avenue, humming along to his favorite song on the radio. Suddenly, he saw red and blue flashing lights in his rearview mirror. A police car was pulling him over. Jesse's heart skipped a beat, knew he hadn't done anything wrong. So why were the police stopping him? Jesse rolled down his window as an officer approached. "License and registration, please," the officer said sternly. Jesse handed them over with slightly shaking hands. "Is there a problem, officer?" he asked politely. The policeman looked at him closely and then at a paper in his hand. "This car and driver match the description of a suspect in a robbery that happened earlier tonight," he said. Jesse's eyes widened in shock. "A robbery? I was just at the community center all evening, sir," he replied, trying to stay calm. But the officer didn't seem convinced. Another police car arrived, and before Jesse knew it, the officers were asking him to step out of the car. They patted Jesse down and gently placed handcuffs around his wrists. The metal felt cold and heavy. Jesse's voice trembled as he said, "There must be a mistake. I didn't rob anyone." But the police had to follow their orders. They thought Jesse looked just like the person described by witnesses, a tall teenager in a gray hoodie driving a small blue car. Jesse did have on a gray hoodie, and his mom's car was a small blue sedan. It was a terrible coincidence, but the police believed they had caught the right guy. That night, Jesse was taken to the police station. He sat in a holding cell, which was a small room with bars like you see. Illustration suggestion: a nighttime scene with police car lights flashing. Jesse stands outside his small blue car, hands cuffed, looking scared and confused, while police officers talk to him. Chapter 4. En enfer sentence. The days after Jesse's arrest were confusing and scary. There was a trial in court to decide if he was guilty of the robbery. Jesse told the truth about everything: how he had been at the community center and was just driving home. Marcus and Dante, along with Jesse's mom, sat in the courtroom every day, praying that the truth would come out. But some of the evidence seemed to point to Jesse, even though it was a big mistake. A witness from the museum insisted that she saw Jesse's face during the robbery. Another piece of evidence was a gray hoodie and gloves, found in a trash can near the crime scene, that looked like ones Jesse owned. Jesse tried to explain that lots of people have gray hoodies, and that he wasn't there, but it was hard for the jury to know who to believe. After a few long days of testimony, The jury reached a verdict. The foreman of the jury stood up and announced, "We find the defendant, Jesse Davis, guilty." Jesse felt like the world stopped. His mother gasped and burst into tears. Marcus and Dante looked at each other in shock and anger, knowing in their hearts that Jesse could never do such a thing. Jesse's own heart pounded in his chest as he tried to speak. "But I didn't do it," he whispered, voice cracking. No one heard him over the noise in the courtroom. The judge looked at Jesse with a sad expression. "Young man, you have been found guilty of robbery. Given the seriousness of this crime, I have no choice but to sentence you to 25 years in prison," the judge declared. A collective gasp came from those who knew Jesse. 25 years? That was more time than Jesse had even been alive. Jesse's legs felt weak, and for a moment he thought he might faint. 2 officers came to lead him away. Jesse's mom rushed forward, and Jesse managed to give her a quick, tight hug. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I promise I didn't," he began, but the officers gently pulled him back. As Jesse was led away in handcuffs, he felt tears roll down his cheeks. Everything he had worked so hard for, finishing school, taking care of his mom, helping the community, seemed to crumble in an instant. He was brought back to a jail cell to wait until he would be sent away to a big prison. Sitting on the small bed in the cell, Jesse buried his face in his hands. "How can this be happening?" he cried quietly. It was the darkest moment of his life. Still, a tiny hope flickered in his heart that somehow, someone would realize the truth. Jesse had always done what was right, and now he could only hope that doing right would matter in the end. Chapter 5. Friends Unite. While Jesse sat in his jail cell feeling hopeless, his friends on the outside were determined to help. The night after the verdict, Marcus invited Dante and 2 other neighborhood boys over to his house. Louise, a quiet boy whom Jesse had helped learn to read better, and Trey, whom Jesse coached in basketball, joined them. They gathered in Marcus's small living room, the air heavy with worry. On the coffee table lay a newspaper with the headline, "Teen Sentenced in Museum Robbery." Jesse's school photo was printed beneath it. The boys stared at the article in disbelief. "This is messed up," Dante said, clenching his fists. "We all know Jesse would never steal anything or hurt anyone." Marcus nodded. "They got the wrong guy, but what can we do about it? We're just kids," he said, voicing the doubt they all felt. Luis looked up, adjusting his glasses. "Maybe we can find out who really did the robbery," he suggested softly. "If we can show proof, the police will have to listen." Trey tapped the newspaper photo. "The real thieves are still out there while Jesse's taking the blame. That's not right. We have to try." The boys fell silent for a moment, each thinking hard. Dante broke the silence with determination in his voice. "Jesse always helped us do the right thing. Now it's our turn to help him. We can't just sit here and do nothing." Marcus took a deep breath. He was the thoughtful one, and he knew they had to be smart. "All right," he said. "If we're going to do this, we need a plan. Let's start at the beginning. The robbery happened at the City Museum, right?" "Right," said Luis. "They stole some paintings, old antiques, and a bunch of jewels from the special exhibit." Trey chimed in. "Maybe we can go there tomorrow, look around for clues, or see if anyone saw something that could help." Marcus managed a small smile. "It's worth a shot. We'll go in the morning." He put his hand out in the middle of the group. "For Jesse?" One by one, Dante, Luis, and Trey placed their hands on top of Marcus's. "For Jesse," they agreed together. That night, the boys all felt a spark of hope. They didn't know if their plan would work, but they knew one thing for sure. Jesse had always been there for them, and now they would be there for him. They vowed to do everything they could to uncover the truth and clear Jesse's name. Chapter 6. Looking for clues. Early the next morning, Marcus, Dante, Luis, and Trey met up in front of the City Museum. The museum was closed to visitors because of the robbery investigation, but the boys walked around the building carefully. Yellow police tape stretched across the back door, which had been broken open. A security guard stood nearby, keeping an eye on the place. The boys knew they shouldn't cross the tape, so they looked around from a distance for anything interesting. Behind the museum was an alley that led to a side street. Luis pointed to some scuff marks on the ground. "Look, it's like tire tracks," he said quietly. It looked as if a vehicle had peeled out in a hurry, leaving black streaks on the pavement. Dante crouched down to inspect them. Maybe the thieves had a getaway van or something and drove off this way, he guessed. Just then, an older man pushing a cart of trash from the museum came out the back door. Trey gently approached him. "Excuse me, sir," Trey said politely. "Do you work here? We're just curious about what happened." The janitor nodded warily. "I do, son. I'm the janitor. It was a mess last night. Let me tell you. Those robbers broke in after closing and tied up the night guard. They knew exactly what to take." Marcus looked at his friends, then asked the janitor, "Did anyone see them get away?" The man shrugged. "Not sure. Police talked to a witness down the block who said they saw a white van speeding away towards the old warehouse district by the river around the time of the robbery." As the janitor went back inside, the boys huddled together. A white van by the warehouse district. It wasn't a lot, but it was a start. Luis frowned in thought. Warehouse district. Isn't that where that old empty factory is? The one with the big red sign? Dante's eyes lit up with realization. Guys, remember Ray and his buddies from our block? He whispered. Ray was a 19-year-old troublemaker from their neighborhood who had a bad reputation. I overheard Ray talking a couple days ago about making some big cash soon. I didn't know what he meant, but what if he was involved in this? He and his crew hang out near those warehouses. Marcus's jaw dropped. You think Ray could be one of the robbers? It's possible. He's always getting into trouble, but robbery's huge. It's a long shot, Trey said. But if he's suddenly flashing money or acting weird, that could be a clue, Luis added. And if he has a white van or knows someone who does, that would be a big clue. The four friends knew what they had to do next. We should check out those warehouses by the river, Marcus decided. But we have to be careful. If the real thieves are there, we can't let them see us. Dante cracked his knuckles, feeling a mix of anger and excitement. We'll be careful. We just need to find something that proves Jesse is innocent. With a lead to follow at last, the boys set off to plan their trip to the old warehouse district, hopeful that they were getting closer to the truth. Glittered in the afternoon light. It looked like it was filled with jewelry. Luis's eyes widened. Those must be the stolen goods from the museum, he whispered. Marcus pulled out his phone with trembling hands. I'm going to take a video, he said quietly. He zoomed in and recorded as Ray and the other man set the painting and the box of jewelry down just inside the warehouse door. The video clearly showed the painting and even the side of the van with its license plate. As Marcus was filming, the boys overheard the men talking. The scruffy man laughed. We really hit the jackpot. And with that kid Jesse taking the fall, nobody's looking for us. That was almost too easy. Dante had to clench his fist to contain his anger, but he stayed quiet. He now knew for certain that his hunch about Ray was right. These were the real thieves, and they were bragging about Jesse taking the blame. Trey leaned in to whisper, We have to call the police. We've got them. Marcus nodded and stopped recording. He began dialing 911 on his phone. But just then, Luis accidentally knocked a small rock off the pallet stack. It clattered loudly on the pavement. Shh! Dante hissed, but it was too late. Ray stopped talking. Did you hear that? Ray asked, stepping back out of the warehouse. The boys ducked down low behind the pallets. The scruffy man came out too, his eyes scanning the area. Marcus held his breath, heart thumping in his chest. For a tense moment, Ray walked toward the pallets, coming closer to where the boys hid. Dante quickly grabbed an empty glass bottle that was on the ground and tossed it down the alley to their left. The bottle shattered loudly. Over there, the scruffy man shouted, and he and Ray ran toward the sound, away from the boys. Now's our chance, Marcus whispered. He hit the call button for 911, and as quietly as he could, told the emergency operator what they'd found. Please hurry, he urged. The robbers are here. At the old factory, with the red sign by the river. The operator responded that police were on their way. The boys stayed hidden, afraid to move too much. They heard Ray and the other thief still searching a nearby alley for whoever made the noise. Every second felt like an hour as they waited for help. But in the distance, they finally heard the faint sound of police sirens. The boys exchanged hopeful looks. Help was coming, and the trap was about to close on the real criminals. Chapter 8. Proving the Truth. Within minutes, 2 police cars screeched onto the scene, lights flashing and sirens blaring. As soon as they saw the police, Ray and the scruffy man dropped everything and tried to run to the van. But from the other direction, a third police car arrived, cutting off their escape. Freeze! Hands up! Officers shouted. Realizing they were trapped, the thieves raised their hands and sank to their knees. The police quickly moved in and handcuffed both men. Seeing it was safe, Marcus, Dante, Luis, and Trey stepped out from behind the pallets, waving to get the officers' attention. A tall police sergeant noticed them and walked over. Are you the kids who called 911? He asked, looking surprised. Marcus nodded and showed the phone video he had recorded. Yes, sir. We have proof these guys are the real robbers. They were hiding the stolen art and jewelry here, he explained, his voice still shaky with adrenaline. The sergeant watched the video clip of Ray and the other man with the stolen painting and jewelry. He listened as the boys hurriedly explained everything. How Jesse was innocent, how they investigated the museum, and how they followed the clues here. A detective joined them, holding the golden-framed painting that had been recovered from the warehouse. Sir, this matches the description of a piece stolen from the museum, the detective confirmed. Another officer opened the metal box the thieves had been carrying. Inside were antique watches, rings, and necklaces sparkling under the afternoon sun, the rest of the stolen treasure. You boys just helped us solve this case, the detective said with a smile. We'll make sure Jesse's name is cleared. He never should have been arrested for this. Hearing those words, Dante couldn't help but grin ear to ear. Yes, wait until Jesse hears, he exclaimed. Trey slapped a high five with Luis, and Marcus let out a sigh of relief so deep, it felt like he'd been holding his breath for hours. As the police led Ray and the other thief into the patrol cars, Ray glared at the kids. You meddling brats, he snarled. but the sergeant shut the car door on him before he could say more. The boys weren't bothered by Ray's anger. They had done the right thing, just like Jesse taught them. The sergeant turned back to the four friends. "You kids were very brave and did a great job. But next time, leave the detective work to us, okay?" he said, raising an eyebrow. He couldn't hide a slight smile, though. He knew these kids had helped save an innocent person. "We will, sir," Marcus said respectfully. "Thank you for believing us." The police wasted no time. Dispatchers radioed the news that the real culprits had been caught and the stolen goods recovered. That meant Jesse's conviction would be overturned. Thanks to his friends, the truth was finally coming out. Jesse's nightmare was almost over. Chapter 9. Freedom at last. That same evening, as the sun was setting, Jesse sat on the edge of his jail cell cot, staring at the wall. He had lost track of time, but every minute felt heavy. Suddenly, there was a jingle of keys, and the cell door swung open. A guard stepped in with a warm smile. "Jesse," he said, "it looks like you're going home. They found the real robbers. You're free." Jesse stood up, hardly daring to believe it. I'm free?" he stammered. The guard nodded. "Your mom's here to take you home. Let's get those cuffs off, son." The guard unlocked Jesse's handcuffs and gently patted him on the back as they walked out. In the lobby of the detention center, Jesse saw his mother standing with open arms, tears of joy streaming down her face. And behind her were Marcus, Dante, Luis, and Trey, all grinning proudly. Jesse's heart felt like it could burst. He rushed forward and hugged his mom tight as she sobbed happily. "I knew it, baby. I knew you were innocent," she whispered. Jesse then turned to his four friends, astonished. How did you guys?" he began. But Dante laughed and cut him off with a big hug. "We had your back, just like you always had ours," Dante said. Marcus nodded, holding up his phone. "We found the proof, Jesse. We couldn't let you go to prison for something you didn't do," Luis added shyly. "You taught us to do the right thing, so that's what we did." Trey punched Jesse lightly on the arm. "Team Jesse, right?" he said with a grin. Jesse was overwhelmed with gratitude. His eyes watered as he looked at his friends. I don't know how to thank you," he said, voice choking up. "You risked so much for me." Marcus shook his head. "You don't have to thank us. Doing what's right is what you always taught us. We just followed your example." Jesse smiled and pulled all four of them into a group hug. They all laughed, and even the guard clapped at the happy reunion. That night, news spread across the neighborhood that Jesse was innocent and had been freed. Neighbors who had doubted him felt sorry for not believing in him. But Jesse didn't hold any grudges. He was too happy to be home, sitting in his own living room with his mom and friends, eating pizza and celebrating. Jesse realized he wasn't alone. He had a whole team of people who cared about him. And that was the true reward of always trying to do good.